So I think where we left off in Avos, I believe we did Mishnah Hey and Vav. So that
Same day. Hey and Vav.
right. So Mishnah Vav is the next set of zugos. That's Yoshua ben Prachia Nitan Harbeli. Yoshua ben Prachia Omer just as a chazara say lecharav knei lechachaver v'havadan kol adam lekavschos. The only thing I want to point out about Yoshua ben Prachia is that there's an Agadata that describes him as the Rebbe of Yashka, but
very Gehazi-like.
Right, that excellent point. Yes, it's kind of there's a trope of wayward student and the stern teacher, and you get that inverted with Rebbe Meir and Acher.
Right.
That we can add that to the subversive to the twice told tales. Yes. But this the Gemara that talks about Yoshua ben Pracha being the Rebbe of Jesus is in Sanhedrin 107b, and came up during the disputation between Pablo Cristiani and Ramban, right, Nachmanides, who made the very astute comment of Yoshua ben Pracha lived hundreds of years before Jesus. So how could he have been like? It's not a historically accurate account. It seems that there is another Agadata of a different sort of wayward student and teacher pair, and I believe the Sanhedrin story is really just a mirror of that that other Agadata. It's the Tosefta and Sanhedrin. I'll try to find the source for that in a second. The other interesting thing about Yoshua ben Prachia is hundreds of years later, so he lives, let's say, the 2nd century before the Common Era, around, let's say, the year 400, 450. If you were a random Jew living in Judea and your son gets a fever, so what do? You don't know where fever comes from. So you knock on the door of your neighbor because you remember a couple of weeks ago his kid had a fever and he was okay. What did he do? He went to the local necromancer spirit guide who made a magic bowl for him. And that was a pretty common practice in that place at that time. And what you would do with these magic bowls is you would essentially capture the demon or the spirit, the thing that is causing your son to have a fever. You've got to capture it and prevent it from wreaking havoc in the home. So how are you going to do that? Well, you need the spirit guide's going to write down a whole bunch of magical incantations, and he's also going to call on other spiritual forces or other magicians who will help to protect the home. And one of those magic bowls, which I'm going to show you right now, they dug up, and it references a Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia. In fact, what it says is over here. I'm just going to read it to you, but they transcribed all the
magic bowl.
Yeah, magic bowl. And the excerpt for you is, I cast a lot and perform a magic act in the court session of Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia. I write a deed of divorce. So basically what they would do is they assume there's some demon spirit, and you have to, what language are you going to use to cast it out? You'll use like Gerushin. Like, I divorce you, I send you away, right?
Yeah.
You're no longer welcome in my home. So that's the language. By a document of divorce, by a deed of release, by a letter of dismissal, blah, blah, blah. And that's the language that we find in these magic bowls. There are hundreds of these magic bowls. There are books and books documenting them. There's a few times where Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia is mentioned. So how did Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia show up in hundreds of years later in these magic bowls? That's the question. The answer seems to be that if you follow the thread of logic, if Rabbi Yoshua ben Prachia is the Rebbe of Jesus, one of the things that Chazal attribute to there are lots of stories in the New Testament of Jesus performing miracles. How does he do that? So the assumption is not the New Testament is lying. The assumption is that he did in fact do those things, except that he did it using magic. So either he or his father are cast in these various stories in Chazal when they talk about in the Midrashim that talk about him. They're talking about him using incantations or magical names of God in order to perform these miracles. So that his Rebbe taught him, exactly. So if, in other words, if I'm trying to call on the strongest force that I can find to cast out magical demon spirit, whatever that's causing these problems, let me go to the source. It's got to be Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, because if Jesus was able to do these amazing miracles, he clearly learned it from his Rebbe, and that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya. Hence, Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya being evoked in these magical bowls hundreds of years later. That is the regnant theory as to what he's doing in the bowls.
Super weird.
Super weird, but hopefully interesting as well.
Yeah.
Probably
that is covered by insurance back then, probably.
Yeah, right.
That was like the norm.
Yeah. You have to see, they actually draw pictures of the demons. The one I showed you didn't have a picture, but most of the bowls have the female demon is called Lilith. So they draw pictures of her with like hairy legs, and it's very it like looks like kids' art. It's very funny. Okay, that is Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya, and I think we discussed his statement in Mishnah Vav. So let's do Mishnah Zayin, and then we can cut over to some Yechezkel. Mishnah Zayin is the second half of our Zugos. Nittai ha'arbeli omer harchek mishachen ra ve'al tischaber larasha ve'al tisyayish min ha'peronios. So distance yourself from an evil neighbor. Do not become attached to anybody. Don't befriend someone who's wicked. Ve'al tisyayish min ha'peronios, and don't abandon any hope that there will be retribution for people who deserve retribution. The only thing I want to mention about Nittai Harbeli, because we mentioned Jesus, so I think it's kind of appropriate. The Yerushalmi in Chagiga 2:2 has Nittai Harbeli as Mattai. Instead of the nun, it's a mem.
Where is this?
Yerushalmi Chagiga 2:2. Now, this is pure irresponsible speculation on my part, but I'm just going to point out that one of the stories that we have about Jesus in Sanhedrin 43a talks about his 5 students.
Matthew.
One of them is Mattai. I'm going to read the Gemara to you now. This is, again, Sanhedrin 43a. Tanar Rabbanan, Chamisha Talmidim Hayilo Liyeshu Hanotzri. He had 4 students. Mattai, Nikai, Netzar, Vuni, Vitoda. Those were their names. Maybe Mattai is Matthew. And all of them are being taken out to be killed by, we'll assume it's Beis Din. And each one tries to justify using a play on their own name why they shouldn't be killed. And then Chazal use a play on their name to show why they should in fact be killed. So, Asyula Mattai, they bring Mattai. Amr Luhu, so Mattai says to them, Mattai Yaharig, you can't kill me. My name is Mattai. Haksiv Mattai Avo Vereh Pnei Elohim. There's a pasuk that says that when will I come and see the Mattai is going to come and see the face of Hashem. Mattai playing on the name. Mattai meaning like when is he going to come? Amrulo, they answered him, in Mattai Yaharig, yes, in fact, we should kill someone named Mattai. Dechsiv, because it says Mattai Yamus Va'aved Shemo. When is he going to die and his name perish? But it's there. Mattai will Yamus will die Va'aved Shemo. That is, again, I can't tell you that the Nittai Harbeli, from a timing perspective, overlapped. I don't believe he did, but there is an interesting point over here that Nittai everywhere else or in other places in Chazal is referred to as Mattai. We have this story with Mattai.
Incidentally, do we really have much else of him other than this one quote in
Pirkei
Avot?
No.
He's a one and done.
Yeah.
Pirkei Avot seems to have several of them.
A lot of one-hit wonders. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too when we get to the end of the parak. What else do I want to mention? Oh yeah, so this Mishnah, it seems like would really tie us back to Yochanan Kohen Gadol, John Hyrkanus. that essentially he was someone who didn't distance himself from a Shachin Ra and was being mischaber with the Tzedukim, and that's what led to his eventual Puranios and his conversion to being a Sadducee. Okay, I think we can pick up with Mishnah Ches next time.